All right, so Candace Owens spoke to Harvey Weinstein from Rikers Island, his first on-camera interview in 8 years. It's 58 minutes long. We begin with Harvey reading a statement proclaiming his innocence.
I did not commit these crimes. I swear that before God and the people watching now and on my family. I'm wrongfully accused. But justice has to know the difference between what is immoral and what is illegal.
Well, look, he prepared something. He's like, I know, Candace, I want to talk to you and you want to talk to me, but can I just get this out? I wrote this thing, and I don't know if everything you read, has been managing, quarterbacking his own defense. But he went on to talk about how some people in Hollywood want to speak out on his behalf, but won't.
But the people who support me are scared to talk. They are frightened to death. They are frightened that they're going to be canceled, that they're not going to be able to work. I try to get, my, people to stand up and even testify in the trial. And nothing, nothing.
Yeah, I mean, listen, on a different level, I mean, in the wake of cancel culture, in the spotlight of cancel culture, I mean, people are afraid. When I got fired from the Today Show in 2016, I was super close to all the women on the show, Hoda and Kathy Lee and everybody. I was, super tight with everybody and popular and well-liked, all these things. And yet, there was a directive that came down, do not speak about him positively, and so they couldn't. And I kept saying, come on, where are all my people? They won't do it. Now, this is a different situation. On Harvey, it's like he was beyond toxic, and you couldn't. But I don't know. Rob Silverstein is right here. He's been following all of this stuff. I mean, Rob,
Bill, when that happened,
do you believe him?
Well, I'm going to talk about you just for a second. I could have done more when that happened. Definitely. In retrospect, looking back, I mean, I was in the middle of a storm, not like you were, but to an extent. And there was immense pressure internally, obviously at NBC at the time. And the piece we ran on Access Hollywood, which ran the same day, we had to run it the same day as the Washington Post, because the Washington Post got it from NBC News. We did everything we could in our piece to protect you, but by that time it didn't matter because
it was a tsunami.
It was out there. The raw tape was out there. So as for Harvey.
But
Harvey's accused is accused of terrible things. So it's harder to come out on his behalf. You were laughing with a guy, basically is what you were doing.
Yeah.
Okay. And he was saying terrible things, but still, Harvey has done terrible things. Right? He's admitted to doing terrible things. Whether they're illegal, that's a whole nother step.
Trump was talking about horrible things, right. And I was hearing this going, well, that's not possible. No human being would ever do that to another human being. So I'm like, that's okay. What do you do? In this case, I mean, Harvey at least he's forthright. He's saying, I'm not a rapist by any means, but I am also.
Right.
But
which we don't know, by the way. We don't,
He says I'm not a rapist. Of course, he's not going to say anything else. But he is saying I was a terrible guy, and I mean nobody can debate that. So let's go to the Gwyneth Paltrow study, the Gwyneth account of Harvey hitting on her in a hotel room. Remember that story? Gwyneth told on Howard Stern her knight in shining armor, Brad Pitt, stood up to Harvey, threatening to kick his ass if he ever did it again. Here's what Harvey had to say about Gwyneth.
A complete fabrication, about my relationship with Gwyneth. I'm going to talk about it and just say that I had a meeting with her. She originally was scheduled to do Woody Allen's Everyone Says I Love You. Thank God I was distributing that movie as well, and I managed to substitute Drew Barrymore for Gwyneth so that Gwyneth could play Emma. And Woody Allen did us a real favor by doing that because we were scheduled to shoot Emma, and I wanted Gwyneth for the role. At the end of the meeting, we had a glass of champagne. As I was walking out the door, I said to her, I'd love you to give me a massage. And she went, yeah.
What?
And, that was it. I didn't put my hand on her. I didn't touch her. I definitely made a pass, I guess, you could call it that. But that was the sum total of that situation. She did have Brad call me, and Brad, very manly, very cool, just said, don't do that again.
Okay. There's a lot to unpack here. There's a lot to unpack here. Firstly, why would he think she would want to give him a massage?
But that's his move. That's his move with everyone.
I know,
mean,
but
he's like,
I assure you, he didn't just say it. He said it probably a little forcefully. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I mean, look, isn't that the natural thing, right? You do a deal with someone, you sign them for a project, you say,
Champagne.
let's have a little glass of champagne to celebrate. That's usually where the Bushman stops. I'm going to say that. I usually break out the champagne, we have a glass. Harvey likes to say, oh, and by the way, I'd really love it if you'd give me a massage. I mean, if you're Gwyneth Paltrow, you got to be like, wait, what?
That's a non sequitur.
Non sequitur came out of nowhere. We're having a champagne. Now, all of a sudden, you want me to oil up and give you a massage, you freak?
Yeah.
And she said, look, I mean, Harvey said after that, Gwyneth said, yeah, no, and took off out of the room. He said they went on to a flourishing relationship. Look at the photos, her hugging me, and, here we are at the Cannes Film Festival. We're all over, thanking him in acceptance speeches. They did many more films together. He said it was a partnership. That's what he called it. Harvey was candid. He copped to all accounts of creepiness, but no accounts of rape, of course. So, anyway, here's another part that I found very interesting of what Harvey Weinstein had to say for the first time in 8 years. He has requested multiple lie detector tests. They granted him one. They're not admissible in court, but he got one on Jessica Mann, one of the 3 women accusing him, and he passed the lie detector at the highest levels. He wants the women all accusing him to take him up on the challenge that they also take one.
I've asked to have lie detector tests brought into the prison. And I already took a lie detector test on Jessica Mann, and I scored in the highest level, that one can do for honesty about not sexually assaulting her or raping her, and I want to do lie detector tests on the others. I know they're not admissible, but I want the world to know that I did that. And I hope the women would just take me up on the challenge and say, okay, we'll do it too. But I doubt they will, but I will.
That's really interesting. I mean, I'd not heard that before. Maybe he's just such a psychopath that he can pass a lie detector test on anything. Not me. I mean, if I'm lying, you can see it all over my face. I mean, I'd be the worst. I'd be like, be
the worst.
But that's interesting. That and they're not admissible, and I don't really know how effective they are, but
right, and they're never going to do it. It's never going to happen.
Do you remember the time that the Church of Scientology got furious at me because we were doing the live TV show, and I said, when they do the audits of people in Scientology, they're basically holding Coke cans, and they you hold the cans and you say, now tell me your deepest secrets, and people tell them, and like they can feel if the needle's going, if it's true or whatever. And so we had them whip up like a weird box with 2 cans that are coming out the side.
Ridiculous.
And I was doing the audit tests on people. Right. I ran into a guy later that day who I know who's a big time Scientologist.
I remember you told me the story.
Oh yeah,
I remember.
And he
who it was.
laid into me. Oh man,
famous guy too.
Famous guy. I was scared.
Yep.
I was like, whoa, I'm sorry. I was just having fun. I don't know.
Yep.
I'm sure it's very serious and very scientific what you're doing there. I'm sure. Okay. Harvey said, about the media, he had a bad relationship with the New York Times. They were constantly going back and forth. And you know this. Harvey would, when we were at Access Hollywood, Harvey would call out of nowhere and he would be like, I really need you to do this and do that. And he's yelling at you and giving you orders. And
that was that Asha Leo, the woman who worked for us. He wanted me to hire her. She's a real knockout. That was
he was trying to score with her.
Right.
So he's telling you hire her, and that'll get me the massage that I'm looking for. And well, you hired her, so I wonder if
I never hired her. And she claims Harvey never did anything.
You didn't.
Right.
You didn't. No.
Right.
But Harvey said about the media, they wanted me and they wanted me in jail forever. So I don't know. It's hard to see Harvey as a victim in any way. Is he a victim of, an over response and overreaction? Is he guilty of the things he's accused of? Candace Owens firmly believes no, and she's gone through all the documents. It's interesting to see what happens here. Seth Rogen, by the way, in 2017, he was asked about Harvey, and that really sort of chapped Harvey because Seth Rogen said, look, I believe all women. He repeated that phrase, which I'm sure he wouldn't repeat today because women are also people. And there is no scientific or biological evidence that says women are prone to tell the truth more than men. We are human beings. So it was a cop-out. And Harvey says it was because his movie, Zack and Miri Make a Porno, failed miserably at the box office, and Seth blamed him for lousy marketing.
That's right. Harvey took it's an interesting 58 minutes because he took a lot of beating of marketing, criticizing himself on movies there's a George Clooney movie with Julia Roberts, I forgot the name of it, that he thinks is an incredible movie and that did nothing, and he blamed himself for not marketing it correctly.
Yeah, he went on to talk about Brad Pitt's production company actually made a movie based upon those New York Times writers who wrote Blake Lively's article in the New York Times on December 22nd of last year. Megan Twohey, and she's the one who took down Harvey and got the Pulitzer for it. Brad Pitt went on to make a movie, maybe to finish Harvey off after the Gwyneth Paltrow scene, called She Said. And Harvey you can see he took a little joy in that. He was like, they had a $30 million budget and it made $2 million.
He goes,
he's the biggest bomb in the history.
He goes, it did $2.5 million in its opening week. He goes, that's a disaster.
A disaster.
And Harvey was kind of gleefully saying that, yes.
All right, well, here's Harvey talking about Ashley Judd. You remember that?
Ashley Judd's claims are, ridiculous. I stood in a hotel room. I never touched her, came on to her, nothing ever. I fought for her. They said I banned her on a movie. I fought for her on Good Will Hunting, and I lost that battle. I thought she would have been fabulous in that movie, and I think she would have gotten an Oscar nomination.
Well, that's interesting. That would be a hell of a lie detector test, considering what he just said and what has come out. That'd be a hell of a lie detector test.
Yeah. I'd like to see all those.
Imagine her in Good Will Hunting.
Yeah, I didn't know that she was up for Good Will Hunting and that Harvey pushed her.
And Harvey lost? I didn't know Harvey lost.
Yeah. Harvey never loses out on these things. Here, people have always wondered, Harvey's ex-wife, with whom he has 2 kids, is Georgina Chapman, the fashion designer. She is currently in a relationship with Adrian Brody. In fact, Adrian Brody, you'll remember at the Oscars, is thanking Georgina and her kids and said, Poppy will be home. So poor Harvey. I wonder for Candace, you ask, how do you feel about, your kids calling this guy Poppy? He says Poppy on the stage, but everyone sort of is wondering, Georgina Chapman, you're kind of in the biz, right? Harvey helped build her fashion company, the whole thing. How did she never know anything about his lecherous ways, which are not up for debate? He said, I was so stealth in my cheating. She had no idea. I was brilliant at it in a terrible way. Harvey also admits after being with Rose McGowan in a hot tub, he gave her $100,000 to keep quiet about it and not tell his wife. Wow.
Some stuff happened in that hot tub, which I'm not going to get into, but he does talk about what went on in the hot tub, Bill.
Yeah, I can imagine. The entire 58 minutes with Harvey is on CandaceOwens.com. Boy, she's an intrepid.
She worked on that a long time to get that interview.
Yeah, I know.
You know what Harvey says at the end of it? This interview is going to explode. That's what he says at the end of the interview.
Really?
Yeah, I think we may be the only ones doing it.
Yeah.
Hold
on, listen. Is it exploding?